We need to leave. What is that thing?
The movie starts with a man in his underwear walking through a forest without thinking, feeling confused and lost.
911.
The scene transitions to the first day of a lockdown. Students are ready to begin an exam. Mr. Johnson, the teacher, collects all their phones and announces the start of the exam. During the test, Jake throws a piece of paper, which lands next to Ash. Jake then asks Ash to pass it to Lizzie. As Ash picks up the paper, Mr. Johnson orders her to read its contents. The note turns out to be a joke. Knowing Ash didn't write it, Mr. Johnson warns Jake and then instructs the class to continue with their exam. While the students were taking their exams, the mobile phones in the cabinet began to ring, diverting their attention. Then, the teacher's phone rang as well. He was visibly shocked by what he heard and quickly left the room, placing Rory in charge. Afterward, the students' mobile phones continued to ring inside the box, creating a surprising and distracting situation. Unable to control his frustration with the abnormal phone ringing, Jake stands up and tries to open the cabinet. Suddenly, a warning from the school office advises everyone on campus to stay inside their classrooms. The students turn on the radio to find out what's going on. They hear distressing news, prompting Lizzie to switch off the radio to avoid the negativity. Jake then breaks and opens the cabinet and retrieves their phones. As they exchange conversation about the situation, Ash begins to hallucinate, and Lizzie wakes her. Just then, birds crash into the classroom window. Despite the chaos, Jake insists they need to leave the classroom. Unexpectedly, Ash opens the classroom door, and they all step outside. They find materials falling across the ground. Ash continues to see strange visions that seem to push her forward. In front of them are special doors that evoke both fear and curiosity. While the others are frightened, Ash is intrigued. She kicks a map, which flies toward the doors and gets swallowed. Jack tests this with a book, and the same thing happens.
Maybe it's transporting them somewhere.
Ash suggests they go inside the doors, believing it might lead them somewhere, but Jack angrily dismisses the idea, calling her crazy. They decide to leave Ash and look for another way out. Ash hesitates at the doors, feeling both intrigued and humiliated until Lizzie comes back to retrieve her. Ash unexpectedly kisses Lizzie, causing Jack to intervene and kick her away. Lizzie calms Jack down, but Ash continues to touch Lizzie. Jack warns Ash to stop, but Ash, in a hallucinatory state, pushes Jack. This action leads to both Jack and Rory being swallowed by the mysterious doors. Ash, now in a disagreement with Lizzie, decides to enter the doors herself, leaving Lizzie alone. Martin Midnight's reports on the unfolding situation. Millions of people are missing, some are confirmed dead, while others have returned. Volunteers who entered the doors have provided updates, suggesting that more news might be available within 24 hours. Vince and Becky, the knockers, control and regulate the doors. Becky, lost in deep thought, feels as though she's in the incubator of life, trapped and imprisoned by her circumstances, and she hates this feeling. Expressing her discontent, Becky tells Vince that she doesn't like the rocks around them. He then tells Becky that rocks are tough, just like her, and that they are independent, also like her. At that moment, they hear a strange sound coming from the forest, prompting them to investigate. As Becky and Vince walk into the forest, Vince asks Becky if she doesn't want to live there. She replies that the environment is moody and cold. Vince begins to defend the environment, talking about its unique qualities, and then starts to express his feelings for her. Suddenly, a soldier calls out to them from the side, asking where they have been and informing them that they've been searching for them. The soldier announces to his team that he has found them, and then informs Vince and Becky that the house structure is stable.
Now you may speak.
Becky and Patrick are having a conversation, with Patrick talking about birds and what Wiz did to them. Suddenly, Vince arrives and they greet each other. Patrick starts adjusting Becky's clothing and comments on how cute they look together. Patrick then asks Vince if he has his phaser, but Becky immediately pulls out a gun and points it at Patrick's head, warning him. Becky, Vince, and Patrick were preparing to enter the door. They had been warned from outside that they only had 12 minutes. As they readied themselves, they heard a voice from the door saying, saying, "I don't want to rock." All three noticed the strange sound. Upon entering, they found a house with a void color and 3 different rooms, each one making the house appear larger than it seemed from the outside. Becky suggested they split up and explore the 3 different rooms to gather more information. Patrick enters the first room and finds it quite interesting. He hears a voice from ahead saying, "Help." Using his microphone, he informs his team that he has found something, noticing the dead leaves scattered on the floor. As he approaches, he sees a woman crying on the bed. She asks why he is looking at her that way. Continuing to update his team, he asks the woman for her name and she replies Rose. Meanwhile, Becky enters the second room and discovers a white-colored kitchen. She announces to the team that there are various objects and baby bottles turned upside down. Then she notices a cradle moving on its own, and it is empty. She stops the cradle and then sees the shadow of a person on the door. Vince enters the third room and announces to the team outside that the room is furnished elegantly. He notices a clock set at 3 o'clock and spots a strange marble. Moving to another room, he finds it even more impressive and comes across another melancholy marble with the clock now showing 6 o'clock. He continues to the next room, which resembles the previous one. This time, he turns a globe and discovers another marble, this one accompanied by a bust with a displeased expression and a clock set to 9 o'clock. In the final room, he finds a marble with a square eye. The clock is counting down.
Caution, 5 minutes remaining.
Patrick finds himself being chased by his dead girlfriend, Rose, who ultimately kills him with a petal of a flower. Meanwhile, Becky is experiencing a surreal moment where she envisions herself with Vince and sees herself pregnant, despite having lost her child in reality. On the other side, Vince encounters a copy of himself and believes he is hallucinating. He gets into a heated disagreement with his duplicate. Desperate, Vince calls for Becky's help. When she arrives, she is unable to determine which Vince is real, as Vince's clothes have changed. Becky, overwhelmed and unable to choose, points a gun at them both. In the end, she shoots the real Vince and, overcome with despair, takes her own life, declaring that she doesn't want to be a rock anymore. Martin Midnight, his fear reflecting the desperation of the unfolding events. He reported that satellites and birds were falling from the sky, weather conditions had become bad, and half of the population had missed. He warned that things were deteriorating rapidly and urged viewers to stay tuned for his next guest the following day. Meanwhile, Jamal Adkins began recording himself with one of the mysterious doors behind him. He adjusted his equipment to establish a proper frequency and then attempted to communicate with the door. To his trial, the door responded. Shocked, Jamal started asking the door various questions, and to his surprise, the door seemed friendly and responsive. Jamal asks the door who it is, and the door responds that it is a friend of Jamal. When Jamal inquires where the door is from, it replies that they have come upon the planet. Jamal then asks what its species is, and the door reveals that they are the Archive, explaining that they are archiving the Earth. Jamal invites Kathy to join him, but she arrives with her younger boyfriend, Leo. Jamal asks if they are ready, and Leo, chewing loudly, is reassured by Kathy, who explains that Leo chews loudly when he's nervous. Leo then reassures them that he's no longer nervous and mentions that they are lucky to be in one piece, suggesting that the doors are killing people. Jamal counters that there are good doors. Leo quickly retorts, questioning if Jamal is crazy. Kathy apologizes to Jamal and tells Leo that Jamal was fired because of his brilliant yet controversial ideas. Then, Jamal reveals that he has a door. They are surprised, knowing how strange and dangerous the doors have been, causing people and knockers to disappear. Kathy asks Jamal to show them the door. Jamal, Kathy, and Leo stand before the door. Jamal explains how he communicates with it and reassures them that he is better equipped than the government to handle this.
The thing is, I found a way to communicate with this one.
Jamal begins talking to the door, and the door responds. He introduces Kathy and Leo, and the door is friendly and responsive. Kathy, amazed by what she sees, hugs Jamal. At that moment, Leo discreetly calls a police officer friend of his. Kathy asks the door if it has a nickname, and the door replies that it is called Lamage. Kathy notes that Lamage is Jamal spelled backward. She then asks the door why they are here, and the door replies that they are here to archive humanity. Kathy becomes very excited, thinking that the door holds the potential to unlock the universe's secrets. However, Jamal urges her to proceed cautiously. Kathy moves closer to the door, and Leo warns her to step back, reminding her that the doors have been responsible for people's deaths. Jamal intervenes, telling Leo that each door is different, and insisting that Lamage has not harmed anyone. Leo, growing more agitated, argues that while Lamage might seem friendly, there's no guarantee it isn't connected to the other doors. At that moment, police officer Ricky arrives and warns Kathy to step back, causing tension since Kathy is unhappy with Leo for calling the police.
Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to step away from the door.
Ricky points his gun to control the situation and asks Jamal to step away from the table. When Ricky asks for Jamal's name, the door itself responds, saying, "I am Jamal Adkins." Ricky is confused by the talking door. In a sudden turn of events, Kathy kicks Ricky from behind, causing him to accidentally shoot and kill Leo. Ricky, now panicking, points his gun at Jamal, but Lamage unexpectedly mysteriously kills Ricky and then begins to refresh himself. Meanwhile, Martin Midnight is in a video meeting with Dr. Alan Price. Martin asks Alan about the doors, what they want, and what will happen next. Alan explains that the doors have changed everything and asserts that they are in control. He emphasizes that humanity will continue to survive in a transformed world. Martin asks Alan if he has been near one of the doors. Alan explains that the doors represent cosmic consciousness, acting as arbiters of existence. When Martin compares them to judges, Alan clarifies that they are an advanced intelligence capable of operating in complex, multidimensional realities. He adds that they encompass all things simultaneously, meaning they are part of us, and we are part of them. Martin asks if they should prepare to fight the doors. Alan reassures him that there is nothing they can do to stop the doors, as they can decide and control everything. Alan admits he feels humiliated by the doors. Martin continues to seek advice, asking what they should do. Alan suggests waiting to be refreshed. Martin, confused, mocks the idea by comparing it to a web browser. After a brief network cutoff, Alan advises him to accept the situation. As the lights in Martin's house flicker, he continues his interview with Alan. Martin asks if it's true that people coming out of the doors are altered in some way. Alan confirms, explaining that it's all part of a test. He says the doors collect information to decide what the next reinterpreted reality will be. The movie concludes with Martin asking Alan if he is in contact with the doors. Alan mentions Martin's name and tells him to accept the situation, explaining that everything will be absorbed and refreshed. When Martin asks if the doors are telling Alan this, Alan replies that he can feel them. In the final scene, Martin transforms. He exhibits strange movements, shouts, tears off his clothes, and ascends the stairs, exercising the unsettling changes brought by the doors. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Watch our next videos on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you on the next one.